Greetings to the lecturer and fellow classmates from group number 4. I'm Nanjiba Morshid and in my group I have Dhanalakshmi, Ma Hongwei, Sinyan Lin. So my group will be presenting about uterus. Let's get into the topic. Here is the briefing of the topics we will be covering for our given organ, which are introduction, morphology and histology, function and diseases. Now let's get introduced with the organ uterus. So the main purpose of this organ is to nourish the growing fetus before the birth. The first problem statement is the organ may bleed between periods or after sex. Besides, hormones, thyroid problems, fibroids, polyps, cancer, infection, or pregnancy, these are some of the problem statements too. What is uterus? A pear-shaped, hollow muscular organ located in a woman's lower abdomen between the bladder and the rectum is uterus. It is also called as womb. The uterus is joined to the vagina by the cervix and it is called the neck of the womb. The uterus is where fetus develops and grows. The ovaries produce the egg that travel through the fallopian tubes. Once the eggs have the ovary, it then can fertilize and implant itself in the lining of the uterus. The main work of the uterus is to nourish the developing fetus prior to birth. The uterus consists of various nerves and networks of arteries and veins as well as ligaments. For instance, the round ligaments, cardinal ligaments, broad ligaments, and uterosacral ligaments of uterus. Now let's talk about the position of uterus. In most women, uterus is tipped forward and as a result, it lies over the bladder with the fundus towards the abdominal wall. In some women, it is found in upright position and the fundus is straight up, but about 1/4 women have retroverted uterus. For different women, the position is different, such as anteverted, retroverted, anteflexed, retroflexed, or midline, and it may be rotated, especially during pregnancy. Most commonly, the uterus lies in an anteflexed, anteverted position in 50% women. Uterus has 4 main functions and those are implantation, gestation, menstruation, and labor. Layers of uterus. There are 3 layers of uterus which are endometrium, which is the lining of uterus and it is made of epithelium, blood vessels, glandular cell which is a type of cell that makes mucus and can be found in tissues that lines the inner part of the cervix. Its function is to secrete and prepare for pregnancy and when pregnancy doesn't occur then this layer processes the menstruational cycle. Myometrium is the middle layer of uterine wall and it consists smooth muscle cells myocytes and vascular tissue and its main function is to induce uterine contraction. Perimetrium is the outer serous layer of uterus which is made up of smooth muscle and its main work is to secrete a lubricate fluid that helps to reduce friction and also covers some of the pelvis organ.
Hello everyone, I'm Dhanalakshmi and I will be talking about the uterine morphology and histology. The uterus is a hollow, thick-walled and pear-shaped muscular organ with an inverted triangle-shaped cavity on the frontal cut. Its 4 main anatomical segments from superior to inferior are the fundus, a broad curved area connected to the fallopian tubes, the body of the uterus, the isthmus, a lower neck region of the uterus, and the cervix, which opens in the vaginal lumen. The uterine wall is made up of 3 layers. The perimetrium is the thin outer layer, part of the visceral peritoneum, and composed of epithelial and endothelial cells. The myometrium is the middle portion composed of 3 layers of smooth muscle cells, the circular, mesh-like, and longitudinal smooth muscle layers. The endometrium is the inner lining consisting of epithelial cells, supporting stromal cells, endothelial cells, and endometrial glands. It is made up of 2 layers, the functional and basal endometrium. The functional endometrium is the superficial layer, and it is made up of dense glandular tissue surrounded by a loose connective stroma. It responds to reproductive hormones which modify its thickness and structure. It lines the uterine cavity and therefore, when it sheds, this results in menstrual bleeding. The basal endometrium is the permanent layer, which contains the base of the glands, dense stroma, and large vessels. It generates the new functional layer each month. Several ligaments support the uterus and keep it in place, including the round ligament, which connects the uterus to the abdominal wall, the broad ligament, which connects the lateral portion of the uterus with the fallopian tube and ovary, the cardinal ligament, which connects the lateral portion of the vagina and cervix to the lateral pelvic wall, and the uterosacral ligaments, which connect the posterior portion of the cervix and vagina to the rectum and sacral vertebrae. As for its vascularization, oxygenated blood is provided to the uterus via the uterine arteries descending from the anterior branch of the internal iliac artery, while deoxygenated blood is then carried by uterine veins through the uterine venous plexus towards the internal iliac vein. Finally, the uterus is innervated by both the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems via the uterovaginal plexus. I will now let Yanlin proceed.
Now proceed to the functions of the uterus. Uterus performs important functions in the reproductive cycle, fertility, and childbearing. It's the site of menstruation and also the implantation site of blastocytes. During a normal menstrual cycle, the endometrial lining of the uterus goes through a process called vascularization, during which tiny blood vessels proliferate, leaving lining thicker and rich with blood. Increases in the hormones estrogen and progesterone cause the lining of uterus to thicken. This helps to prepare the uterus to receive and nurture a fertilized egg during pregnancy. If this does not happen, the level of estrogen and progesterone decreases. The uterus sheds the lining as a menstrual period. During pregnancy, if conception or fertilization occurs, the fertilized egg, the embryo, burrows into the endometrium from which the maternal portion of the placenta, the decidua basalis, will develop. As a pregnancy progresses, the uterus grows and the muscular walls become thinner, like a balloon being blown up, to accommodate the developing fetus and the protective amniotic fluid produced first by the mother and later by urine and lung secretions of the baby. During pregnancy, the muscular layers of the uterus became contracting on and off in preparation for childbirth. These practice contractions, Braxton Hicks contractions, resemble menstrual cramps. Some women don't even notice them. They are not the increasingly powerful and regular contractions that are strong enough to squeeze the baby out of the uterus and into the vagina.
On to the next part about nutrient disease. There are 4 types of nutrient disease: endometriosis, fibroids, uterine polyps, and cervical cancer. Today I will introduce 2 types of disease about endometriosis and fibroids. Endometriosis is the abnormal proliferation of endometrial tissue, which is similar to lines in the inner of urethra. Around 11% of women suffer from endometriosis. Such lesions are mostly commonly found on the ovaries, flat tubes, surface of the urethra, and the bowels. Sometimes those lesions are rarely present in vagina, cervix, and bladder. So, what causes the endometriosis? There is a theory that menstruation reflects internally and deposit in the pelvic and abdominal cavity can cause endometriosis lesions, but those are many women who regulate menstruation who do not have endometriosis. Another theory is that this is caused by the proliferation of lesions. The inner wall area of the pelvic organ has the ability to develop of the other tissue, and those cells migrated to other parts of the body through the body stream or lymphatic system to produce tissue proliferation. The evidence also shows that some women with endometriosis have immunity issues so that affect the body distribute to detect and eliminate to proliferation cells. Uterine fibroid is an enormous tumor. It's usually caused by growth at the expense of the muscle wall of the urethra. Fibroids are classified by 3 types: submucosal, intermural, and submucosal. Genes ratio and vitamin D lack For the treatment, uterine disease can be treated by drugs and surgeries. The uterus is an interesting but somewhat complex organ, and we personally felt that it's quite difficult to learn about it without a visual aid. We think the use of interactive, anatomical, and histological software program and 3D human body models are other creative learning methods, since there is good visual hands or experience which add in learning. We hope that our presentation has allowed you to learn more about the physiological of the uterus. Here's our presentation. Thank you for watching the video.